You know that feeling. When your to-do list is just like stretching out forever.
Oh, yeah.
You're jumping between emails and meetings and all these tasks all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of it all, you just collapse and think, wow, I was so busy today.
Right. You feel the exhaustion.
Totally. But then there's that little follow-up thought. Wait, what did I actually accomplish?
Exactly. That blank feeling.
Does that sound familiar to you listening? Because, well, that's kind of the puzzle we're getting into today.
Yeah, what is the real difference between just being busy and, being truly productive?
And figuring that out, it turns out it's a bit of a game changer for feeling more in control and actually hitting those goals that, well, that really matter to you.
It really is. And it's something that it crops up everywhere you look, doesn't it?
It does.
We've been digging through, well, all sorts of stuff. Everything from really practical guides on, how to manage your work better.
Like business advice.
Yeah, exactly. But also some more philosophical takes on what work even means in the bigger picture.
Interesting.
And even just, people sharing their own experiences online, their frustrations.
And what's really striking is how this same idea, this busy versus productive thing, it just keeps surfacing no matter the perspective.
It's a common thread.
Totally. So what we're hoping to sort of explore with you today is why that packed schedule doesn't always mean real progress.
Right. Why the hamster wheel sometimes feels like it's spinning faster but not going anywhere.
Yeah. And maybe more importantly, we want to share some hopefully down-to-earth ideas about how to actually focus on the things that make a real difference.
Okay, so where do we start? How do we even begin to unpack this busy versus productive idea?
Good question. Let's maybe start with the basics, like just defining the terms.
Okay, so being busy, at its simplest, is just being occupied, right? You're doing things, maybe a lot of things, filling the time.
Lots of motion.
Exactly, motion. But being productive, that's more focused. It's about actually finishing tasks, completing things that move you towards your specific goals, your desired outcomes.
So it's motion with direction.
That's a great way to put it. You can be moving a whole lot that's being busy without actually heading where you want to go. That destination, that's productivity.
That makes a ton of sense. And Jim Rohn, he was really good at simplifying things, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had some great insights.
He had this line, something like, activity is not necessarily accomplishment, movement is not necessarily achievement, being occupied is not the same as being effective.
Ooh, I like that. Effective. That's the key word there.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can spend your whole day just reacting, putting out fires, basically,
Burning around like crazy.
without ever actually building anything substantial or moving towards a bigger goal.
And it's not just, a theory. You see this reflected in people's real lives. If you look at online forums, discussions.
What do people say?
Well, you see folks really wrestling with this.
Right.
Especially in, say, typical office environments. That feeling of endless meetings and emails.
Oh, definitely. The meeting marathon.
But also in other fields, too. Like, we saw examples from agriculture. Just this sense of constant grinding work, but without that feeling of actually getting ahead.
Right. It's that weariness, that end-of-day exhaustion, but without the satisfaction of real progress being made.
Mm-hmm. You're tired but not fulfilled.
Which kind of leads us to this sneaky thing, doesn't it? The illusion of busyness.
The illusion. How so?
Well, the feeling that just being busy somehow means you're getting things done. That's important.
Right. Like having a packed schedule makes you feel significant.
Exactly. Like you're really on top of things because look how much you're juggling. Jim Rohn touched on this too, didn't he?
He did. He talked about how common it is to hear someone say, almost like a reflex, oh, I'm so busy.
Yeah, like it's a badge of honor.
Almost. As if just the state of being busy is an achievement in itself, regardless of what you're actually busy with.
But what's really interesting and maybe a little worrying is how that constant busyness can actually mask some deeper issues.
Like what?
Well, Ron pointed out it can often be a sign that there's no clear plan, or maybe your focus is just scattered everywhere.
Or maybe you're prioritizing the wrong things.
Precisely. If you're always just reacting to whatever emergency pops up, whatever email lands in your inbox,
Instead of proactively working on your own goals.
right, then you'll definitely be busy, but maybe not productive in the way that really counts towards your objectives.
And this connects to an idea from Carbon, a company that works on workflow stuff. They talk about the grinder.
The grinder. Sounds intense.
It is. It's someone who's putting in a massive amount of effort, definitely busy, working really hard,
Okay.
but they're being super inefficient. Like, imagine trying to chop down a big tree with a really dull axe.
Right. Lots of sweat, not much wood chip flying.
Exactly. Tons of effort, but slow progress. Carbon suggests these grinders often need what they call a minder.
A minder to watch over them.
Sort of. Someone to help them pause, step back, and refocus their energy on more effective actions. Like the classic advice, sharpening the saw.
Ah, taking that time out of being busy to actually improve how you work so you're more effective later.
Exactly. Investing a little time now to save a lot of wasted effort down the line.
It really makes you wonder, though, why do we sometimes feel this almost compulsion to be constantly busy? What's driving that?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are definitely some psychological factors at play.
Like what sort of things?
Well, we saw someone mentioning online how feeling in control of their schedule, their time, made them feel happier.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
Control equals good feelings.
Right. And conversely, feeling overwhelmed by too many commitments, feeling like their time wasn't their own, that caused a lot of stress.
So busyness,
Huh.
maybe it's a way to feel like we're in control, even if it's like control over lots of unimportant things.
It could be. Almost like staying in motion, even if it's just spinning your wheels, gives us this perhaps false sense of agency in a world that often feels unpredictable or chaotic.
Yeah, I can see that. Like our brains sometimes just equate activity with progress, even when it's not true.
But the sources we looked at also really highlight the downside, the cost of this constant busyness.
What kind of costs are we talking about?
Well, places like Verywell Mind talk pretty clearly about the toll it takes on our actual well-being.
How so?
The stress just builds and builds, burnout becomes a real risk, and our relationships can suffer too.
Because we just don't have the time or energy for them.
Exactly. No time for meaningful connection when you're always rushing, and that whole idea of work-life balance, it just poof, disappears.
Yeah, it gets completely skewed.
And this is where rethinking how we view rest becomes so critical.
Rethinking rest, you mean not seeing it as lazy?
Precisely. Metrics, for example, suggest that downtime isn't wasted time at all. It's actually incredibly productive.
Productive, how?
It's an investment in your mental health, your physical health. It lets you recharge, step back, maybe see things from a fresh perspective. It can even boost creativity.
So rest isn't the opposite of being productive. It's actually a part of being effective.
Exactly. Seeing it as crucial,
Yeah.
not optional. That's a pretty big mental shift for a lot of us, I think.
Okay, right. So we're clear on the difference, busy versus productive. We've talked about why we fall into the busyness trap, maybe some of the psychological drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get to the really practical stuff. What can we actually do about it? How do we make that shift towards being genuinely productive?
Yeah, the how-tos. And luckily, our sources were full of really concrete ideas here.
Okay, lay them on me. What's first?
A big one, maybe the foundation, is planning with intention. Really designing your day with purpose.
Okay, planning with intention. What does that look like?
Well, people like Jim Rohn and Phil Cook both stress this. Instead of just waking up and immediately reacting to whatever emails or demands hit you first.
Which is so easy to do.
Oh, totally. The default mode. Instead, take a few minutes, maybe the night before, maybe first thing in the morning, to actually identify your top priorities for the day. What really needs to get done.
The most important things.
Yes. And then, crucially, schedule them. Block out time for them in your calendar, just like you would a meeting.
Ah, so you're being proactive, setting your own agenda, rather than just letting the day happen to you.
Exactly. You're driving, not just reacting.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Hand in hand with that is figuring out your high-value activities.
High-value activities.
Yeah, Jim Rohn talks a lot about the 80-20 principle. You've probably heard of it.
Vaguely. Remind me.
The idea is that roughly 20% of your activities tend to generate about 80% of your results.
Okay, so a small chunk of effort gives most of the reward.
Pretty much. So the trick is to identify your 20%. What are those tasks or projects that really move the needle, that have the biggest impact on your goals?
And then focus your energy there.
Exactly. Really prioritize those things. Think about it. Is answering every single email the second it arrives really in that 20%?
Probably not for most people.
Right. Or is it spending focused time on that key project, that difficult conversation, that strategic planning? Those are more likely your high-value items.
Which leads us to something that I know can be really hard for people.
Let me guess. Saying no.
You got it. Learning to say no.
It's tough, but Ron really emphasizes how vital it is. He points out that every time you say yes to something,
You're saying no to something else.
exactly, even if that something else is just your own focused work time or time to recharge or time with family, you have a finite amount of time and energy.
So you have to be selective.
Yeah.
Guard your time for those priorities you identified.
Protect that 20%.
Okay. So we're planning intentionally. We're focusing on high-value tasks. We're saying no to distractions. What about how we actually do the work?
Right. Once you know what to work on, how you work on it matters. And a big piece of advice here from Ron and also from Hunamed is single tasking.
Not multitasking. But everyone seems to glorify multitasking.
I know, but the evidence suggests it's mostly a myth, or at least it's very inefficient, trying to juggle multiple demanding tasks at once.
What happens?
Well, your brain is constantly switching gears, and each switch has a cognitive cost. It drains your mental energy faster, makes you less efficient overall, and actually increases the chances of making mistakes.
So focusing on one thing at a time is actually faster and better quality.
Generally, yes. Deep focus on one task. Hunamed even mentions things like the Pomodoro technique.
Pomodoro,
Hmm.
like the tomato timer.
Exactly.
Right.
Working in focus bursts, say 25 minutes of intense concentration on one thing, followed by a short break. It's a way to train your focus muscle and get into that single tasking groove without feeling overwhelmed.
Interesting. Little sprints of focus.
Yeah, it helps you dive deep without trying to sustain that intensity for hours, which can lead to burnout.
Okay, what else? Any other strategies?
Another key shift is changing how you measure your progress.
How do you mean?
Instead of just looking at how many hours you clocked in or how busy your day felt.
Which we've established can be misleading.
Right. Ron and also New Lab, who provide project tools, suggest focusing on outcomes. Did you actually achieve what you set out to do? Did you make tangible progress on your important goals?
So asking, did I move the needle today? Rather than, was I busy today?
Exactly. New Lab emphasizes looking at what you produced, the results, not just the effort expended, shifting from input to output.
Okay. And what about all those little tasks, the ones that aren't high value but still seem to take up time?
Ah, yes, the necessary evils sometimes. Jim Rohn has some straightforward advice here. Eliminate, automate, or delegate.
Eliminate, automate, delegate. Okay, break that down.
Eliminate. If a task truly doesn't add value, if it doesn't need to be done, just stop doing it. Question if it's really necessary.
Be ruthless.
A little bit. Then automate. Can technology handle this? Setting up email filters, using scheduling tools, templates, whatever saves you manual effort on repetitive tasks.
Use the tools available.
For sure. And finally, delegate. Is this something someone else could do just as well? Maybe even better? Or maybe it's just not the best use of your specific skills and time. If so, hand it off.
Freeing you up for that high-value 20%.
That's the goal.
Okay, one more area.
Yeah.
What about working with others? Collaboration takes time, too.
It does. And Atlassian, the company behind tools like Jira and Trello, has some interesting thoughts on making collaboration more productive, less like just another source of busyness.
Wow.
They talk about being strategic with synchronous versus asynchronous time.
The sync and async, like real-time versus non-real time.
Exactly. Use synchronous time when everyone's together, like in a meeting or a video call, for the things that really benefit from that immediate back and forth. Brainstorming complex ideas, tackling tricky problems, building team connection.
Things that need active discussion.
Right. But then lean on asynchronous time working independently, communicating via documents, comments, maybe pre-recorded videos for focused individual work, and just sharing information.
Not everything needs a meeting.
Definitely not. They even suggest things like sending a quick video announcement instead of scheduling a 30-minute meeting just to share updates, respecting people's focus time.
That makes a lot of sense. Using the right tool or time format for the job.
Yeah. It's all about being more intentional with how we connect and work together.
This is all really practical, grounded stuff. But you mentioned earlier there's also a philosophical side to this whole discussion about work.
Yeah, it definitely goes beyond just efficiency hacks. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, for instance, delves into the very nature of work.
Oh, wow. Okay. What kind of ideas do they explore?
Well, for one, they make this interesting distinction between work, labor, and employment.
What's the difference?
It's a reminder that not all the valuable work we do fits neatly into a traditional job description. Labor might be more about the effort, employment about the economic contract, but work can be broader creative pursuits contributing to a community.
Things that give meaning beyond just a paycheck.
Exactly, and that ties into another point they make. Work can be a really important social activity. It can provide a sense of community, belonging, and the feeling that you're contributing something valuable to others.
That sense of purpose.
Yes. And that intrinsic motivation, that sense of contribution, can be a much more powerful driver than just the external pressure to seem busy.
And didn't Hunamed also bring up something called flow state?
Yes, flow. That's a fascinating concept, originally explored in depth by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
What is flow state?
It's that feeling you get when you're completely absorbed in an activity. You're so engaged, so focused that time just seems to disappear. You're fully
I
immersed.
think I know that feeling, like when you're really into writing or playing music or even coding sometimes.
Exactly. Now, businesses often talk about flow purely as a way to boost productivity, right? Get people in the zone so they produce more.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But Csikszentmihalyi's original idea, and what Kuhneman touches on, is that increased productivity is almost a side effect of flow.
Oh, so what's the main point then?
The main point is the experience itself. It's deeply enjoyable, intrinsically rewarding. It's about harnessing your focus, feeling a sense of control, and engaging with a challenge that matches your skills.
So it's more about happiness and fulfillment.
Yes, it's about being so focused and present in what you're doing that everything else just fades away. Hunemed emphasizes that achieving flow isn't just about getting more done, it's fundamentally about leading a more fulfilling, happier life.
That's a really different perspective than just how to be more productive at work.
It is. It's interesting how the business world sometimes takes these deeper concepts and kind of narrows them down to just the output, the productivity gains.
Yeah, losing some of the original richness. It's not just about the outcome, but the quality of the experience itself.
Right. The deep engagement, the enjoyment in the process.
Which actually brings us full circle back to something Jim Rohn mentioned, which feels really important after talking about flow and energy.
What's that?
The absolutely crucial role of rest and renewal.
Yes. So important because productivity fundamentally isn't just about managing your time. It's really about managing your energy.
Manage your energy, not just your time. I like that.
We simply can't be on constantly pushing at 100% all day, every day. It's just not sustainable.
We burn out.
Exactly. Regular breaks, proper downtime, periods of actual rest, they're essential. They're not luxuries. They're necessary for preventing burnout and actually maintaining effectiveness over the long haul.
Like Ram said, right. You wouldn't expect your car to run indefinitely without refueling.
Precisely. Our physical and mental energy levels work the same way. We need to recharge consistently to perform at our best when we are working.
So pulling all this together, the big takeaway seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Being busy truly is not the same thing as being productive. They can look similar on the surface, but the underlying intention and the actual results are often worlds apart.
And we really hope that walking through these ideas, from the practical tips to the slightly deeper thoughts, have given you listening some things to chew on.
Maybe some practical strategies you can actually try out in your own life.
Definitely. We'd really encourage you, maybe later today or sometime this week, just take a few quiet moments. Look honestly at your own schedule, your own patterns.
Ask yourself, where might I be prioritizing just looking busy or feeling busy over those actions that genuinely move me closer to what I want to achieve? Where is the motion without direction?
And here's maybe a little challenge, something to think about this week. What's just one thing you do regularly, one busy activity that you could realistically cut back on, change, or maybe even eliminate entirely in the next few days?
Just one small change.
Yeah. And what could you do with that reclaimed time or energy? Could you dedicate it to one of those high-value, productive actions instead, something that actually aligns with your goals?
Try experimenting with it. See what happens. Observe the difference it makes, not just in what you get done, but maybe also in how you feel.
Because ultimately, by understanding this difference between busy and productive, and by making even just small intentional shifts,
You really can start to gain more control over your time, dial down some of the unnecessary stress, and, well, achieve more of what truly matters to you.
it's about working smarter, not just harder, and maybe feeling a bit more satisfied at the end of the day.